What's up, guys? It's Chris here, back in the building with a very special edition in the run up to this year's NFL playoffs, because this week I'm going to discuss who will potentially win the NFC West title race and who is possibly missing out on a playoff spot this year. Because, in my humble opinion, that the NFC West is the toughest division in the NFL this year, with the teams, if you don't happen to know them already, which you guys saw in my introduction at the start of the video, they are the San Francisco 49ers, they are the Arizona Cardinals, the Los Angeles Rams, and the Seattle Seahawks, all of which are pretty much potential Super Bowl contenders. However, in the NFL this year, theoretically, only 2, maybe even 3 teams can make it out of that very tough division. But without further ado, let's get started on the video where I will discuss who will beat who, and based on those records, who is making the playoffs. By the way, guys, if you haven't happened to already, I would highly recommend checking out the video for my Week 15 NFL predictions in 2 minutes, because it gives a rundown of all the predictions for the games this week, including all of the NFC West games. And I'm going to start off in alphabetical order. That means I'll start with the San Francisco 49ers. And in their 3 games that they have left this season, they have the Dallas Cowboys, the Arizona Cardinals, and the Seattle Seahawks. Even though they hold a 5-8 record, anything can happen in today's NFL. However, from my predictions, I think Week 15 this week, I think they should beat the Dallas Cowboys and move to 6-8. However, I don't expect them to win the rest of their games. I think they'll lose to the Cardinals and they'll lose to the Seahawks, finishing with a 6-10 record. Although, I will admit, it's not a fair representation of how they performed this season given the number of injuries that they've had. However, it is what it is. You have to contend with injuries and other issues in the NFL today, especially with the COVID-19 crisis, which has hit many teams, and the fact that the 49ers aren't even playing at home in San Francisco a minute. They're in Arizona, of all places. So I think mentally that will affect the team, but I think they'll move on and hopefully rebuild ahead of next season and potentially become a Super Bowl contender once again, and maybe even become the NFC's representative in another Super Bowl. The second team in the NFC West, which I'm going to discuss, is none other than the Arizona Cardinals, who from their remaining 3 games have to take on the Philadelphia Eagles, who, by the way, are still in with a playoff contention of all teams, despite the fact that every team in the NFC East is set to have a losing record this season, by the way. However, jokes aside, they have also got the San Francisco 49ers in Week 16, and last but not least, they have the Los Angeles Rams on the final day of the 2020 NFL season. However, I can see the Cardinals winning 2 of those games being the Eagles, because even though they have Jalen Hurts at the helm under center in Philadelphia, the thing is, I don't think it will be enough against Kyler Murray, and at the same time, I think the 49ers, with their injury issues, I doubt they're going to prove much of an issue for the Cardinals in that game. However, I think the Rams will beat the Cardinals. I know this is very early to predict, but I could see it happening from a few miles away, and at the same time, I don't think Murray could beat Goff on that given Sunday, in my opinion. Next on our list, we've got the Los Angeles Rams, and their 3 teams left on their schedule include the Jets, the Seahawks, and last but not least, the Cardinals on the final day of the season. However, I think they will be the team that clinches the NFC West. Spoiler alert, unfortunately, and I hope I could be proven wrong in this prediction, by the way. However, I think the Jets game, practically speaking, is a bit of a gimme, because the Jets, they're 0-13. What makes me think they're going to win the game this week all of a sudden, unless they want to throw a spanner in the works and help the other NFC West teams, in particular the Seattle Seahawks. But jokes aside, I think Rams will win that game. However, the following game, Seahawks versus Rams, I think that ultimately could decide the division, because in particular the game will be at CenturyLink Field. However, saying that, the Rams have had a pretty good record against the Seahawks in recent years. So I would not put it past them to think, actually, hang on a minute, they'll beat the Seahawks a second time this season in Seattle, by the way, where CenturyLink Field is arguably one of the toughest places to play in the entire league, by the way, let alone the entire division and the conference that is the NFC. However, I think the Rams will steal a game in Seattle, and judging by that, they'll have the head-to-head record against the Seahawks, and they'll win out against the Arizona Cardinals on the last day of the season to ensure that they take home the NFC West title. Finally, we have the Seattle Seahawks, and their 3 remaining games are Washington, the Rams, and the 49ers to close out their season. I think they'll win 2 of their games. Obviously, I think they should beat Washington, even though Washington, they have Alex Smith back under centre, and they've looked good in recent weeks. Don't get me wrong. However, I think Russell Wilson has stayed relatively healthy over the season, and I think he should be able to carry the team to another win. However, as I mentioned previously with the Rams, I think they'll be shocked in Seattle when the Rams come to town, and at the same time, I think the Rams will steal a game at CenturyLink Field. However, I think they will beat the 49ers on the last day of the season. However, based on that, it should mean that the Rams, the Seahawks, Cardinals, and 49ers will finish in that respective order. So, as anticlimactic as that sounds, which is practically speaking the current almost practically speaking, those are the current standings in the NFC West, but I think that is how the division finishes come the end of week 17. So before I go, guys, I'm going to leave you guys with the current division standings going into week 15. As I mentioned, the Rams, the Seahawks, Cardinals, and 49ers will finish in that respective order. Rams and Seahawks, I think, are definitely going to make the playoffs. Cardinals, you know what? They might get lucky with their 9-7 record. However, we've seen in the past that 9-7 records have been able to make the playoffs, but because this year there are 3 wildcard teams, that could very much well be the case that they make the playoffs for certain. However, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. As I mentioned, if you want to check out the Week 15 NFL predictions in 2 minutes, the video is right here. If you want to check out the Week 15 playoff picture, the video is right here. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel right here. And until next week, guys, peace out.